If you're looking for the best books read in my Q1 2026 wrap-up, this video you don't want to miss. This is my quarterly reading wrap-up that has my top book recommendations. So I'm going to break down those standout reads that you need to have on your TBR. So if you're searching for what to read next, the best books of 2026, or top Black romance and street lit reads, stay right here. Hello serial readers, welcome or welcome back to the channel. I'm Ronnie Natasha Renee, or just Ronnie is fine. Today we're getting into my Q1 wrap up. When I say this quarter had me stressed, obsessed, and fully locked in, I mean it. I read 61 books this quarter across street lit, dark romance, contemporary thriller, and a little literary. Today we're focusing on those standouts. My top reads in each category, the ones that had me in a chokehold. Let's start with the urban fiction street lit reads. I read 29 books in this genre. You already know this is my lane. Messy, toxic, can't put it down. So for this genre, I chose my top 3. The first one is 3 a.m. by Jai Bree Nae. This book, magnetizing. We follow Symphony and Kenyatta. And let me just say, these two together were all kinds of messed up. So the tropes that we find in this book, definitely toxic love. You get that street loyalty versus love and that ride or die dynamics. Kenyatta was the king of Houston, and he had this throwback 90s style fly about him. He had this aura and presence that made you pay attention. Kenyatta knew he was the man, but then Symphony showed up and she could care less. That had him intrigued. Thing is, Kenyatta wanted the benefits of being with her, but he did not want the title. And that's when things go awry. And let's talk about the cast. You had Rozo, you had Harmony, you had Triple C's, you had Gia, you had Juno, you had Kato, you had Z. Every one of those characters had a purpose. There were no fillers. In Symphony, baby girl know how to pull them. And that ending, yeah, it hit. So here's the thing, 3 a.m. ends on a cliffhanger, and I was ready to jump into book 2. But when I went back and searched, book 2 had not been released. I wanted more. I wanted more from Jai Bree Nae, and so I was like, all right, let me go down her catalog. She did have other books, and she actually had a duet, Love, Allure, Volume 1 and Volume 2. With this duet, you do get a multi-cast experience, but we're following the Pierre brothers. Adrian, who's the oldest of the brothers, he was kind of forced into, not forced, but he had no other choice but to be the father figure for his brothers. Then you have Drake, who was the top dog in the streets. Drew was the ladies' man, and he was the second in command. And then you had the baby, Drennan. Drennan was fighting not to be legit. In this duet, you do get the tropes of family loyalty very strong. Brothers that were in the game. You get cheating, you get secrets, you get betrayal. You got it all in this duet. It was all about, we're trying to get out of the streets, but something kept pulling them back. Something keeps pulling me back every time everything to do to be good, you gotta make it work. Adrian's whole mission was to save his brothers from that life. But ironically, in order to save them from that life, he had to teach them about the game first. It's something that Adrian didn't want, and you felt that regret from him. Fast forward 15 years later, everything starts to unravel when they start to execute their plan of getting out of the game. I think the standout couple for me in this series was Drake and Nori. Drake and Nori. When I tell you, that relationship had me hypnotized. It was messy, it was toxic, and it was addictive. The next top read is also a series. So far, books 1 and 2 have been released. It is Gotti, In Love with a Made Man by Nako. We are only in Q1, and I'm already saying Gotti is the top contender for book bay of the year. Gio is this made man. He's powerful, he's smooth and dangerous. And his eyes go on Nina. Nina is not your typical lady. She's elite. She came from wealth. She came from structure. She had a legacy. Her life was already planned out for her. And then she meets Gio. And baby, you're gonna get that mafia and street crossover. And you definitely gonna get power versus love. That's what it's all about. Which one are you going to choose? Gio, he was a lover boy in disguise. His presence, his control, his softness with her. Yeah, I was so smitten. But Nina, she had me mad. I was like, girl, who you gonna choose? Your family or yourself? Tension in this book was top notch. That's what made this story hit. Let's go to dark romance, mafia, those obsessive reads. I read a total of 5 books. My top pick is the 5th Republican series by Penelope Sky. In this series, we follow Bastian. He's the crime lord of all crime lords. And we also follow Fleur. And Fleur is rebuilding her life after a major betrayal. So obviously in this series, we're gonna get a morally gray MMC. One who's obsessive, possessive. You will also see a power imbalance because, like I said, he's the crime lord of all crime lords. And Fleur is rebuilding her life as a bartender. I saw a review saying that this series is just smut. And I'm like, did we read the same book? Because I was locked in on Bastian. Bastian was dangerous and he was ruthless. But with Fleur, he was a lover boy. Fleur was his kryptonite. And on top of that, we get the plot of Fleur rebuilding her life. She was starting over. And so she had trepidation starting over and her finding out who Bastian is. This new man in her life. He's just not any man. He's a crime lord. And here's the thing. When they came for Bastian, you bet he tore Paris down. If you're unsure after reading book 1, keep going. The story does fully develop. All right, let's get into my top books that fall under the contemporary black romance reads. I read 14 books in this subgenre. So listen, the thing about me is once I take a liking to an author, I'm not stopping. I'm jumping in their catalog. And I'm combing through to find their next best book. And that's exactly what I did with Nako. Because here's the thing. She released book 1 of Gotti, A Made Man. But book 2 wasn't released yet. So I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I need to read another book. And so I started combing through her catalog like a mad woman. And then I found the one. It looked very different on the cover compared to her other book. And then I read the synopsis and I was like, that's the one. And the book is In Love with Miranda Mackenzie. Do not let the cover fool you. There's gold in this book. In this story, we have Carmen, who's the MMC, and obviously Mackenzie, who's the FMC. This is a strangers to lovers trope. Then it turns into we're just friends. Not really. These two, they denied their feelings for so long, which is why we got the second chance and later in life trope. It took them that freaking long. And when they came back together that second time around, I was nervous because the first go round, their pride always got in the way. What I loved most was the growth. They both went through the whole process of going to therapy, being healed. The spiritual grounding that came out of the prayer that Carmen prayed, I was like, yeah, girl. You better make sure you keep him. It felt real. The love, what they went through, and the ending really felt earned. The last 2 books that I chose for my top picks, the first book is from the series 420 Bay, and it's book 1. But when I was preparing for my wrap up and I was choosing the books, I could not remember what the story was about. This was one of the first books that I read in January, so and I didn't take notes, and so my notes kind of helped jog my memory. I'm just gonna have to reread it. I went into Amazon. I saw that there was another book that popped up that said that it was a part or related to the series, and that was Some Kind of Love by L. Wright. And this is actually the prelude to the series 420 Bay. So Some Kind of Love follows Taylor and Keon, and then the 420 Bay, the first book, which is Smokin' Love, follows Spence and Leia. For Taylor and Keon, here's how they're connected. So Taylor is Spence's niece. For Taylor and Keon, their chemistry was very natural, which actually made sense why these two connected. With Spence and Leia, I was locked in. Spence wanted Leia bad, but at the same time, he respected her pace because she was going through something, right? Which is why we got the later in life trope. He knew that she wouldn't be ready so quickly after whatever she went through. One thing about Spence, he made it clear. He was like, I want you. When you're ready, I'm coming for you. All right, Spence. Spence was known around town as Zaddy. The communication with all the characters, from Some Kind of Love to Smoke and Ace, you got open communication, honest communication. It was healthy communication. I loved it. This was mature love because the characters were able to communicate how they felt. One thing is for certain, two things is for sure. L. Wright knows how to write a love scene. I was in it, period. Let's jump to a different genre, which is thriller mystery reads. I only read 2 books. From those 2 books, I'll give you my one top read, and that is As the Wicked Watch by Tamron Hall. This was my very first investigative journalist style thriller, and I really enjoyed it. We follow Jordan Manning, who was a journalist investigating the death of a young black girl by the name of Massey James. So not only do we get the trope of obviously missing persons, we also get systematic justice, which is why I actually love this book so much. It was themed throughout the story. Jordan was smart, she was bold, she was assertive. She had to be aggressive in some instances. She had to push the boundaries in order to find the truth. That's what made it scary, because she was pushing those boundaries. I love that it brought to light the systematic issues within journalism as it pertains to our community of black and brown people. And simply the message is that black and brown people, we are not prioritized. Our stories are often minimized. And in this book, Jordan definitely risked her life to change that. Something a little different as well is that I did some Audible books. In fact, I listened to 7 Audible books. Out of the 7, 6 were a series. And so that series is my top pick. And that series is I Should Be Smarter by Now by Issa Rae. Issa Rae, it just happens to be that person. If she speaks, I want to listen. So when I found this series, I quickly jumped into it. The series, it was quick, it was digestible, and it was full of gems. Issa breaks down her life lessons into 6 key areas. The one that really stood out the most that I was able to identify with was the audio about procrastination. So this series is really great for an Issa Rae fan. If you want to understand how she moves, how she thinks, and how she built her career, definitely recommend this for you. We're getting close to the end. Under other or literary reads, I read a total of 4 books, but I would definitely say there was one book that stood out amongst all of those 4 books, and that was Burn Down Master's House by Clay Kane. This book was powerful and necessary. It's uncomfortable, but in the best way. It follows multiple characters like Larkin, who was my standout character for me. Norman Bruce, not a favorable character. Thaddeus, also not a favorable character. Josephine, Luke. As you can tell by the title, you are definitely going to get resistance to slavery. But it was done in a different way, which is why I loved it. We also get this trope of reclaiming erased history and the power of misinformation. That word misinformation is heavy. We don't really think about it, right? Especially because it plagues today's society through social media. Misinformation is shared constantly back and forth. But misinformation is a tactic that's been around forever. So it's different stories, but they're all connected. Even though the stories are fictional, they are definitely inspired by real and forgotten lives. What definitely stood out to me was how Clay addressed misinformation and how history gets distorted, which is a ploy, which is a tactic. One other thing is Clay made a choice not to use explicit language such as ninja. And one might say, how could you not with a slavery themed book? But let me tell you, the impact was still there. You still felt the terror, you still felt the horror, you still felt the violence, you still felt the reality of it all. One thing that really stuck with me is even when we are free, that freedom can be conditional depending on who holds the power. Who always holds the power? Are we really free? And can it be taken from us at any given moment, at any given time? This book makes it really clear people will choose themselves, even if it costs you everything. So yeah, that was my quarter one. A mix of toxic chaos, soft love, dark obsession, and stories that actually made me think. Let me know in the comments, what was your favorite read for this quarter? And which of these are you adding to your TBR? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, it's always for the love of books. See you in the next one. Bye, guys.